Oh, I have to have that voice, recording in progress. All right, this is MSO News Sports. I'm Rick Forum. Once again, we're listening in from the State House with State Senator, Massachusetts State Senate Minority Leader Bruce Tarr. I'll get it out eventually, Senator. Thank you for coming in. I appreciate
it. Rick, it's no problem. It's great to be with you, and I'm very impressed by your athletic jacket. It makes you look very, very worldly today.
Well, again, it's directly from Ireland. It was sold during the 2013 Rugby World Cup that took place in Australia. And this symbol over here signifies the logos of each of the 4 UK countries that participated. So thank you for that. A lot of the people think that's my Harry Potter thing. I was a headmaster of Slytherin for the Quidditch match at Gloucester High School. So I guess it's appropriate.
You are incredibly multifaceted, and I hope your viewers understand that.
Yeah, okay. All right. We won't get into that. We are talking here now on the very 1st of November. We survived haunted happenings on the North Shore, and God bless Salem residents for living through that. It's a great centerpiece for the North Shore. The Senate is the legislature is still in informal sessions, and so there's not a lot of breaking news coming out of the State House, but there is some. And there's been some ongoing difficulties with the Merrimack River, with all kinds of stuff up county there. So a very recent event took place. You want to tell us about that?
So, we had an amazing day yesterday, Rick, where we celebrated the milestone of the dredging of the Merrimack River. As you may know, the United States Army Corps of Engineers has responsibility for maintaining the navigability of the Merrimack River so that vessels can transit in the channel. And it's important every few years to do that dredging. And we've had a couple of dredgings that have been done within the last few years. But it's also important that when the river gets dredged, the material that gets dredged, the spoils, get used in a beneficial way. And if there is no other plan, the Corps deposits those spoils into near-shore disposal sites. And that's okay. But it's much better if we can reuse that sand to be able to nourish the beaches. And that is exactly what is happening. So yesterday, we had what we called a sand breaking at Plum Island up at North Point.
I get it. I get it.
It's in the Newburyport part of the island. And folks who have been following this know that that area has been threatened with very severe erosion. In fact, one home was condemned because of the erosion that's occurred up there. And we had put in place a temporary structure consisting of some rock and some sandbags, which has been protecting the homes. But it's also important, Rick, to remember it's not just about the homes. It's about access to the beach, which is a natural resource for all of us. It's about the water and sewer system that serves Plum Island, which is vulnerable to erosion if it were to get washed out. And it's about public safety. And so we all worked with the Army Corps of Engineers. As you know, I chair an organization called the Merrimack River Beach Alliance, which is Salisbury, Newburyport, and Newbury working together with state officials, local officials, and federal officials. And we work together with the Army Corps of Engineers to ensure that the sand that's coming out of the Merrimack River is going onto the beach to protect that area on the northern part of the island. And Rick, it's going to be a substantial amount of sand. It's going to be somewhere between 220,000 and 250,000 cubic yards of sand, which will go a long way to rebuilding the dune system. And the timing of it is really important because we are now in the storm season where that area could be threatened. Generally in the fall, we have an erosive pattern that continues through the spring, and then we get into an accretive pattern. So right now, we're in the vulnerable zone in terms of timing, and that sand couldn't be coming at a better time. So yesterday, we invited all of our partners out to the beach, and Senator Markey came, and Congressman Moulton, and my legislative colleagues, Representative Mira, Senator DeZoglio, Mayor Reardon from Newburyport, Councilor Ziad and Councilor Wright from Newburyport, and just a whole group of people that have worked together to make something happen that is so important, but without the teamwork that we've had, wouldn't have happened at all. And so we were really pleased to celebrate that and commemorate this milestone. We certainly have a lot more work to do. but being able to accomplish the goal of maintaining the navigability of the river and putting the sand on the beach to protect the things that I described was really important, and it was good to celebrate it.
That's amazing. I kind of wish they had done that when they dredged Gloucester, the Wingersheik area a year or so ago. And I also noticed former Mayor Donna Holiday in the pictures, and I've talked with her in the past about that too. So it was great to see her being invited as well.
We've been very fortunate, Rick, again, to have the teamwork that we've had. And Mayor Holliday was very committed to addressing this issue. And fortunately, Mayor Reardon has been equally committed. So we've had consistent leadership on behalf of the administration in Newburyport to get this done. And, you know, when you work so hard at something, it's important to take a moment and reflect on it and how you got there. And I would argue, and I did argue yesterday, that the model of the Merrimack River Beach Alliance is one that could be followed for a whole host of complicated and sensitive issues, of putting everyone at the table together to have the conversation about how to best address those issues. And I'm incredibly proud. I am a bit biased because I'm the chair of the Merrimack River Beach Alliance, but I'm incredibly proud of the model that it uses, because it's accomplished now 2 dredgings of the Merrimack River, the rebuilding of the jetties, a lot of permitting of projects that are somewhat experimental in nature, but could hold great potential for the future in terms of combating erosion. And yesterday was just another great day, another great chapter in the life of the MRBA.
Well, congratulations on that.
Well, thank you. And I should point out, Rick, that the federal government is paying for the bulk of the work, but under the rules that the Army Corps of Engineers follows, part of the cost of putting the sand on the beach, as opposed to putting it out in a disposal area, has to be assumed by a non-federal sponsor. And the Baker-Polito administration, through the Department of Conservation and Recreation, is paying for that part of the project. So again, partnership all the way around.
Good for Massachusetts.
You know, it really is. And coastal erosion is a serious issue, and it's not just on Plum Island. And again, sometimes it may be easy to give in to say, well, there isn't a lot we can do about it. But what we've been proving at the MRBA is there's a lot we can do about it. It's not easy. It's challenging. It requires teamwork and persistence. But there are ways forward.
Interesting, because as I said, the beach that I'm most familiar with, Good Harbor, seems to be getting smaller and smaller by the decade due to erosion. That's a really interesting concept. All right, let's keep it on the nautical here for a minute. And there was a story on ABC I saw last night that had to do with foreign ship freighters and things like that going back and forth up in and out, and laws that I didn't understand. But you know something about that.
Well, there's really one law that's coming into focus right now, Rick, and it's a law that's been with us for quite a while, and it was intended to protect the commercial shipping industry in the United States, and it's known as the Jones Act, and it has a couple of different dimensions, but the one that's relevant right now is that, and this is a gross oversimplification, but it prohibits a foreign flagged vessel from going from one U.S. port to another U.S. port to another U.S. port. It doesn't allow a foreign flag vessel to sort of go up and down the coast without stopping in an international port. Now, that's important to all kinds of shipping. In fact, last year, it became part of a controversy relative to the importation of fish that affected Gorton's. And the fish was coming by ship from the West Coast and coming through the Panama Canal and coming up, but it was not making a stop necessarily in another U.S. port until it hit Canada. And there was an issue. Somebody built a rail line that was only 100 feet long to try to get around the law, and it created a lot of issues. But the issue right now involves LNG, liquefied natural gas. And most, if not all, of the ships that transport that are foreign flagged. And so there's a difficulty in getting it from one U.S. port, and principally in the southern part of the country, into Boston and into New England. And right now, it's looking like we are going to have some serious issues with regard to supply of liquefied natural gas this coming winter. Not only do we use it to heat our homes, many of us do, but also it's used for the majority of electricity production in Massachusetts and in New England. And historically, what has happened is LNG tankers will either come into the port of Boston or they'll come into offshore sites. There are two of them off Cape Ann. And in the offshore sites, they regasify the liquid natural gas and it goes right into some pipelines. In Boston, oftentimes it's offloaded and transported to storage tanks. But the point is, it's important strategically to having enough supply for us in the winter to be able to generate electricity and heat our homes. And the inability of a lot of vessels to be able to bring it into our region is causing a serious concern about supply. And so the president of Eversource today in the news has been prevailing or trying to prevail upon the federal government to give an exemption from the Jones Act. And Governor Baker and the New England governors have also been having that conversation with U.S. Secretary of Energy Granholm. And the information that I've gotten from those conversations is that the Jones Act currently requires an exemption to be given one at a time, so for each specific ship. But what is needed and what is being sought here is more of a blanket exemption for a period of time to say that we want to avoid an emergency. We need to allow these ships to bring gas into New England. And so that's the nature of what's happening. And I think you're going to hear a lot more about this in the days to come.
Sounds very interesting. And I'm gathering there would be safeguards to prevent what the Jones Act meant to prevent in the first place. As you said, it would be a temporary type thing.
It would be. As far as I understand, right now, the only way that you can get an exemption from the Jones Act is with an application on a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
But what's being sought here is something that I don't know that has ever been issued before, which is a blanket exemption for a period of time.
Yeah. Yeah, we're all looking at those home heating costs projections and not being very happy about it. Let's go to a brighter note. What about tax refunds in Massachusetts? I've read a lot about that lately.
Well, I'm happy to report that today is the first day that refunds will be going out. The amount of the refunds, the total amount, and I want to make sure I get this number right, is $2.941 billion with a B dollars. Now, original estimates, Rick, pegged that at equaling about 13% of what someone paid in state taxes. It's since been revised within the last week, and the refunds will be about 14% of what we paid in state taxes. And they'll be going out either as direct deposit or as a check. It will take a while for all of them to go out. So, you know, it's important to check the mailbox every day, but don't be alarmed if your check isn't there right away. But this is a result of Massachusetts General Law 62F, which was passed by the voters in 1986. And essentially it sets a ceiling on the total amount of revenue the state can collect. And anything over that goes out. It was originally intended to go out in the form of a credit toward next year's taxes. The Baker administration revised those regulations so that now it'll be going out directly as a rebate.
Interesting. Interesting. I got a question about that when we're not recording here.
Okay.
I don't want to seem too stupid when I ask it. Finally, Senator, what's the status of the Tarr family trek to Shelburne, Canada, to get a Christmas tree for Cape Ann?
Well, I'm pleased to report that the people of Shelburne have again offered the city of Gloucester a Christmas tree. I've seen pictures of it. I can actually send you some, Rick, that you might want to post.
Absolutely.
It's a beautiful looking tree. My brother Ringo and his team of Joe Novello and Nick Kukaroo, and maybe Nick DeCoste this year, will be leaving, I believe, on November 5th, which is, I think, Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. And it takes a while to get there. And they've had a complication because usually they would take the ferry from St. John, Nova Scotia to Digby, Nova Scotia to get on the island of Nova Scotia or the peninsula of Nova Scotia. Unfortunately, the ferry, which is run by Bay Ferries, is not running right now. It's in dry dock for repairs and maintenance. So the team will be driving all the way around, and that adds another 3 or 4 hours to the trip. So not insurmountable, but it sure is nice when the ferry is running. And the folks at Bay Ferries are always very good at accommodating this venture. They've been very, very supportive over the years. But unfortunately, this year they can't provide transportation. So Ringo and the team will be going up, and then very shortly, Rick, you'll be seeing the tree at Kent Circle, and all of us out there working on it, getting ready for the lighting, which will be the Sunday after Thanksgiving.